Lorraine certainly was making it interesting. She was wide-hipped and full-breasted, like a Ben Stahl illustration for a wanton dancing in hell. And if she'd done this dance in hell, the devil himself would have flipped. She was about 5'6" or 5'7", and so close to me now that I could easily see she was wearing an abbreviated cloth affair like a sarong cut off at the thighs. She had a lot of thick black hair hanging loose down her back, and her lips pouted, and her breasts pouted, and her hips crowded the sarong, and I like crowds. The orchestra played softly in the background, low-down dirty rhythm with muted bass and brushes on the snare drum, and suddenly I recognized the number. I hadn't recognized it till now because I'd never heard it played like this before, but I'd always thought it was sensual as hell, particularly at the end. And it went well with the act, because it was Manuel de Falla's ritual fire dance. Now I could hear Lorraine's bare feet slithering and slapping on the floor. She slipped out of the sarong, twisting and writhing, her shoulders shaking, and I don't know how I happened to notice, but she was smiling as if she were having a hell of a good time. And she raised up on her toes, with her arms stretched over her head, and stood like that for a moment, wearing nothing but a heavy cloth brassiere and a wispy, flesh-colored G-string, and the orchestra muttered in the background as the spotlight went out. I thought, what the bloody hell? That was good, but was that all? The dance seemed awfully short, and the props had looked like a lot of trouble for so brief a number. Besides, that heavy bra hadn't seemed to go with the wispy G-string. Then, suddenly, and with an audible hissing roar, those little flames behind her became torches that leaped up into the air and flared and flickered redly over the great painted idol and the body of the girl. Sweet Lorraine was still there, and now I knew. That heavy brassiere didn't go with the wispy G-string. She was still in the same position as when the spotlight had winked out, up on her toes and with her arms stretched above her head, but she traded that heavy cloth for a negligible sprinkling of some flecks of metallic powder that glistened on the jutting tips of her breasts like golden dust. She was motionless for only a moment, with the sound of the pulse-quickening music swelling up behind her, and the torch's red flames leaping upward and sending shadows rippling over her white flesh. And then she swayed her shoulders gently from side to side, and her breasts gleamed dully as they moved through the red glow that was the only illumination. I don't know if she was still smiling or not. That's not where I was looking. And I wasn't smiling. I was jamming my teeth together. Then she really went into her dance, and I forgot I was in the Pelican Club on the outskirts of Los Angeles, forgot I was starting a new case, forgot everything except the wild woman on the dance floor a few feet from me. Because she was a wild woman. A wild, wild woman who twisted and turned and arched her body in a dance that gradually lost its gracefulness and became a savage, naked blending of throbbing music and writhing flesh and licking tongues of flame. It was no longer a graceful succession of movements liquidly flowing one into the other, but a frantic, frenetic series of shocks, each more violent than the last, an assault upon the flesh and a rape of the senses. This was a gift of woman, not a surrender. And the flames followed her as she sank slowly to the floor, straining her body, quivering, her breasts shaking. Then she was lying on her back, her arms pressed flat against the polished wood, palms down, hips thrust into the air above her, writhing and jerking spasmodically. Suddenly the flames spurted higher into the air behind her, and the music shrieked a minor discord as she tensed and held her rounded body motionless for long seconds, her hips thrust high off the floor. Then slowly she sank down, relaxed, as if exhausted. She lay still in the perfect quiet of the nightclub as the instruments of the orchestra sighed and gasped into silence. And the flames were suddenly snuffed out, and the room was dark. The darkness was complete for a moment, and there wasn't much applause. Probably everybody was too weak to use up that much energy. I'm 6'2" and 205 pounds with practically no fat, and I was too weak. When the lights came back on, the props were gone.